Before anyone ever saw me win, I was already planning how I'd take back everything that was quietly taken from me. My voice, my space, my worth. They thought I'd keep swallowing it like I always had. They were wrong. And before I tell you how this all unfolded, do me a small favor, tap subscribe, drop a quick comment telling me where you're watching from, and help this story find the people who need it most. My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm the older of 2 daughters born and raised in Maplewood, Ohio. As far back as I can remember, I was always the serious one, the responsible one, the one who thought before she spoke and planned before she dreamed. My younger sister, Brianna, was the complete opposite. Growing up, our house was never quiet. There was always her laughter bouncing off the walls, my parents hovering around her like satellites, and pop music blasting from her bedroom at all hours. Me, I lived in the corners, quiet corners, curled up with library books, finishing homework early, finding comfort in order and predictability. Birthdays and holidays made our differences impossible to ignore. Brianna would rip through her presents, squealing over trendy outfits and the newest gadgets. I'd carefully open cards, quietly slide the cash into an envelope, already thinking ahead. "What are you saving for now?" my dad, Richard, would ask, pride flickering in his eyes, even if confusion lingered behind it. "A laptop," I'd say. "For school. The library computers are always full." He'd nod, but I could tell. Neither he nor my mom, Linda, really understood why I didn't want what other girls my age wanted. Brianna was a whirlwind of demands and reinvention. "Mom, everyone has the new phone." "I need it," she'd insist. And just like that, it appeared. No saving, no waiting, no lectures about responsibility. The day I finally bought my laptop, after months of saving, researching, comparing, I was glowing. I brought it to the dinner table like it was a trophy. "Look," I said, unable to hide my smile. "I finally bought it." Mom barely glanced up from her plate. "That's nice, honey. Brianna, tell us about the mall." And just like that, my moment evaporated. Brianna launched into a long story about sales and compliments from strangers, and my achievement faded into the background like it always did. I knew my parents loved me, in their own way, but Brianna was the sun in our family's universe. I was just a distant planet, orbiting quietly, expected not to interfere. As we got older, the gap widened. Brianna experimented with bold hair colors and the latest fashions. I stuck with a simple ponytail and jeans that made sense. The Maplewood Public Library became my sanctuary, the one place I wasn't compared to anyone else. When college applications came around, I poured everything into them. Nights blurred together as I polished essays, hunted scholarships, studied until my eyes burned. When the acceptance letter came, with a full scholarship, I thought my heart might burst. I ran into the kitchen, letters shaking in my hands. "Mom, Dad, I got in. Full scholarship." Mom was helping Brianna with her makeup. "That's nice, sweetie." "Brianna, don't blink. Your eyeliner." Dad glanced over his newspaper. "Good job, Evelyn. We expected that." That was it. No hugs. No celebration. I went back to my room, clutching the letter, realizing this was my way out. My proof that I could build something on my own. Meanwhile, Brianna barely scraped through high school. When she brought home her report card, I waited for disappointment. Instead, my parents surrounded her. "Oh, honey, college isn't for everyone," Mom cooed. "You'll find your path," Dad said. "You're special." I couldn't help myself. She barely passed. Mom shot me a look sharp enough to cut glass. "Don't be cruel, Evelyn." I learned then, no matter what I achieved, Brianna would always be protected. College was freedom. For the first time, people valued effort. I thrived. During my junior year, Brianna called. "I'm thinking about beauty school," she said cheerfully. Mom and Dad loved the idea. I wanted to tell her about my research project, my internship. I didn't bother. She wouldn't care. Years passed. Brianna drifted from course to course. I graduated with honors and landed a job at a major firm in Chicago, Illinois before my diploma even arrived. Moving into my tiny apartment was bittersweet, but it was mine. I worked relentlessly. Late nights, early mornings. Within a year, I was promoted. I called home. Mom answered. "That's nice, Evelyn. Guess what? Brianna met a wonderful man." Click. Another moment gone. I kept going. Promotion after promotion. Eventually, I became the youngest department director in company history. The owner, Mr. Harris, called me into his office. "You've earned something special," he said. "A chance to buy an apartment at a discount." When I got the keys, I cried. I threw a small housewarming, plastic tables, disposable plates, but it was perfect to me. My coworkers were supportive. Then my family arrived. Brianna smirked at the furniture. Every time someone praised me, my parents redirected the attention to her. After they left, my coworker whispered, "That wasn't normal." I laughed it off. I always did. I bought a modest car next. Paid in full. Pride filled my chest. That night, Brianna called. "You're doing life the hard way," she said. "Why work when you can marry, right?" Months later, she announced her engagement to Trevor Langford, a man with money and parents who paid for everything. The wedding was lavish. My parents glowed with pride I'd never seen directed at me. I drove home questioning everything, until I remembered my life was mine. After the wedding, Mom's calls increased, always about Brianna. One day I snapped, "Don't you want to know about my life?" "You should learn from your sister," Mom replied. Then came the housewarming at Brianna's luxury condo. She mocked my old party openly. Years passed. Then, one Saturday, Mom called, voice shaking. "Trevor left her." I rushed over. Chaos. Brianna screaming. My parents scrambling to please her. I suggested a job. They threw me out. Days later, I won a company contest, a 4-month world cruise. I called home, hopeful. "You should give it to Brianna," Mom said. Something inside me broke. I said no. I left. I turned off my phone. When I returned, I found Brianna living in my apartment. My car was gone. "We sold it," my parents said. That was the moment everything shifted. I told Brianna to leave. I hired a lawyer. I fought back. Not loudly, not cruelly, but firmly. The truth finally spoke for me. And this was only the beginning. If this part hit home, stay with me. The next part is where the balance really starts to change and the quiet consequences begin to unfold. I didn't sleep that night. Not after finding Brianna sprawled across my couch like my home was some temporary hotel room she could check into whenever life didn't go her way. Not after hearing my parents casually admit they'd sold my car like it was an old piece of furniture they no longer needed. I sat on the edge of my bed in my own apartment, staring at the wall as years of memories rearranged themselves into something clearer, sharper, and far more painful than I'd ever allowed before. By morning, the shock had burned off, leaving behind something colder and steadier. I walked into the living room. Brianna was still there, scrolling on her phone, surrounded by shopping bags like trophies from a war she hadn't earned. "You need to leave," I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. She laughed, not looking up. "Relax, Evie. Don't be dramatic." "I'm not asking," I said. "Get your things. Now." She looked up then, really looked at me, like she was seeing a stranger wearing my face. Her expression shifted. First disbelief, then irritation, then the familiar manipulative pout. "You're being cruel," she said softly. "You know I'm going through a hard time." "So am I," I replied. "And this ends today." She tried everything after that. Tears, guilt, insults, reminders of how much Mom and Dad had done for her. None of it worked. An hour later, she left in a huff, dragging her bags behind her, promising I'd regret this. She was right about one thing. Things were about to change. The next step wasn't emotional. It was practical. I called a lawyer recommended by my company's legal department. His name was Daniel Brooks, and he listened without interrupting as I laid everything out: the car, the spare keys, the unauthorized sale, the money. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "What they did was illegal." Hearing that word, *illegal*, was grounding, validating. "They'll say it was family," I said. That I agreed. That I owed them. "They can say whatever they want," Daniel replied. "The law doesn't care about favoritism." Filing the paperwork felt surreal, like I was stepping into someone else's life. My parents exploded when they were served. My phone lit up nonstop. "How could you do this to us? You're destroying this family. We raised you better." I didn't answer. Court was months away, and those months were some of the hardest of my life. Doubt crept in at night. Guilt whispered familiar lies. But every time I wavered, I remembered standing in that parking lot, realizing my car, my independence, had been taken without a second thought. When the court date finally arrived, I sat straight-backed, hands folded, listening as years of behavior were reduced to facts. Receipts, dates, signatures. The judge didn't care about Brianna's tears or my parents' outrage. The ruling was swift. I won. My parents were ordered to repay the full value of the car. They didn't have the cash. They sold their house. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply accepted what was mine. They moved into a small apartment and told anyone who would listen that I'd betrayed them. That I was heartless. That success had changed me. Maybe it had. I bought another car, this one nicer, newer. Driving it off the lot felt like exhaling after holding my breath for decades. I cut contact. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I focused on work. Promotions came faster than ever. I traveled. I built friendships that didn't require me to shrink. I learned what it felt like to exist without constantly bracing for disappointment. Then, almost a year later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was Brianna. Her voice was different. Smaller. "Evelyn," she said, "we need to talk." I stared at the screen, heart steady. I knew whatever came next would test everything I'd built, and I also knew I was finally ready. And in the next part, you'll see what happens when someone who always took finally realizes the door is closed, and what it costs them to knock anyway. I let the phone ring twice before answering. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to be sure I was choosing this, not reacting out of habit. "Evelyn," Brianna said again, softer now. "Please." I stepped onto my balcony. The Chicago skyline stretched out in front of me, lights blinking like 1,000 quiet witnesses. "You have 5 minutes," I said. She exhaled sharply, like she'd been holding her breath for months. "I messed up. I know I did. I didn't think things would end like this." I didn't respond. Silence had become a skill I'd learned well. "Mom and Dad, they're not doing great," she continued. "They keep fighting. Money's tight. They're angry all the time." A pause. Then, "They blame you." That didn't surprise me. "And you?" I asked. Another pause, longer this time. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Trevor's gone. His friends disappeared. The invitations stopped coming. It's like, once the money was gone, I was invisible." The irony nearly made me laugh, but I didn't. "I need help," she said. "Just until I figure things out. I can stay with you for a bit. I won't be in the way." There it was. The familiar pattern. Crisis, then expectation. "No," I said. She sucked in a breath. "You didn't even think about it." "I already did. A long time ago." Her voice hardened. "So that's it? You're really going to abandon your own sister?" I leaned against the railing, the cool metal grounding me. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm just not sacrificing myself anymore." She started crying then, not the dramatic sob she used to deploy, but something raw. "You don't understand how hard this is." I closed my eyes. "I understand better than you think." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I didn't spend the rest of the day drowning in guilt. I went to work. I led meetings. I laughed with coworkers. That night, I cooked dinner and ate it slowly, savoring the quiet. Weeks passed. Then months. I heard things through distant relatives and mutual acquaintances. Brianna tried to start a small online business, quit within weeks. Tried moving back with friends, burned bridges. My parents cycled between anger and denial, convinced the world had wronged them. And then came the letter. Handwritten. Crooked. From my mother. It arrived on a rainy Thursday evening, slipped under my door like a ghost from a life I'd already buried. I let it sit there for hours before picking it up. The letter was long. Apologies tangled with accusations. Regret mixed with entitlement. "We did the best we could. You were always so strong. Family forgives." The last line made my chest tighten. Family forgives. As if forgiveness meant erasing consequences. As if love required compliance. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. A month later, Daniel called me. "Your parents are asking about settling the remaining balance early," he said. "They want to avoid further penalties." "Let the process continue," I replied. "By the book." After I hung up, I sat quietly, surprised by how little satisfaction I felt. What I felt instead was clarity. This wasn't about winning. It never had been. It was about ending a cycle. At work, something unexpected happened. I was offered a position overseas. Temporary, high impact, high visibility. A chance to lead a new division from the ground up. I said yes without hesitation. Packing my apartment again felt different this time. Not like escape, but expansion. The night before I left, I stood in the living room, remembering Brianna sprawled on that couch, my parents' voices on the phone, the judge's gavel. It all felt distant now, like scenes from a life I'd outgrown. At the airport, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Brianna. I see it now. I really do. I just wish I'd learned sooner. I stared at the screen, then typed back. I hope you build something that's yours. No more. No less. As the plane took off, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Not victory, not bitterness, but a quiet certainty. And in the next part, you'll see what happens when paths cross again, not in desperation, but under very different lights, where choices finally reveal who we've become. The city I moved to was Seattle, gray skies and sharp air, the kind of place where everything feels honest because nothing pretends to be bright all the time. I threw myself into the work immediately. New team, new expectations, new pressure, and for the first time in my life, none of it felt heavy. It felt earned. I was leading a division from scratch, building strategy, hiring people, making decisions that actually mattered. There was no one hovering over my shoulder, no one diminishing my work, no one redirecting praise to someone else. When I succeeded, the credit stayed where it belonged. When I failed, I owned it and learned. That alone felt revolutionary. Months passed. My days were full, my nights quiet in the best way. I decorated my new apartment slowly, intentionally. Every piece of furniture had a reason for being there. Nothing was borrowed. Nothing was temporary. Then came the conference. It was a national industry summit, 3 days of panels, networking, keynote speakers. I almost skipped it. I was tired, buried in deadlines, and content staying invisible. But something nudged me to go. On the second evening, during a reception filled with polite laughter and clinking glasses, I felt it, that unmistakable sensation of being watched. I turned. Brianna stood near the entrance. She looked different. Not broken. Not glowing. Just real. Her hair was pulled back simply. No designer dress, no dramatic makeup. She hesitated when our eyes met, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. I didn't move. Eventually, she walked toward me. "Evelyn," she said. No sweetness. No edge. Just my name. Brianna. An awkward pause stretched between us, heavy with history. People passed by, unaware they were walking between years of imbalance. "I didn't know you worked here," she said. "I didn't know you'd be here," I replied. She nodded, twisting the stem of her glass nervously. "I'm interning. Marketing. It's unpaid." I waited. "It's not glamorous," she added quickly. But I needed to start somewhere. That was the first time I heard her say start instead of deserve. We stood in silence again. She looked around, then back at me. "You look good." "So do you." It wasn't a lie. She didn't look successful by our parents' standards, but she looked steadier. "I owe you an apology," she said suddenly. "Not the kind I used to give. The real one." I studied her face, searching for the familiar manipulation. It wasn't there. "I spent my whole life thinking things just happened to me," she continued. "That people existed to catch me when I fell. And when they didn't, I blamed them. You especially." I said nothing. When Trevor left, when the money disappeared, when Mom and Dad couldn't fix it anymore, I panicked. And when you said no, when you stood your ground, I hated you for it. She swallowed. But that was the first time anyone ever forced me to face myself. That surprised me. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she added quickly. "I know I don't get to ask for that. I just wanted you to know. I finally understand what it costs to build something. The old me would have softened instantly. The old me would have filled the silence with reassurance. This time, I let the truth breathe. "I'm glad you're learning," I said. "But that doesn't mean things go back to how they were." She nodded. "I know. We parted that night without promises. No hugs. No dramatic closure. Just an understanding that something had shifted, and not in the direction she once controlled. A week later, my parents tried again. An email this time. Shorter. Sharper. They'd heard about my position. About the conference. About Brianna's internship. We deserve credit, my father wrote. After everything we sacrificed. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. You didn't sacrifice for me, I typed. You invested in one child and ignored the other. I built this without you. I hit send. Then I blocked the address. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Work accelerated. Recognition followed. I was invited into rooms I'd never imagined entering. People listened when I spoke. They didn't interrupt. They didn't redirect. One afternoon, my manager pulled me aside. There's talk of expanding your role permanently, she said. Global oversight. I smiled. Not because of the title, but because I knew I could handle it. A few days later, Brianna emailed me. Just one line. I got offered a paid position. I replied with 2 words. Good work. No exclamation point. No overreach. Just acknowledgement. And in that moment, I realized something important. Growth doesn't always come with reconciliation. Sometimes it comes with distance, boundaries, and letting people face the weight of their own choices. But the story wasn't done yet. Because not everyone learns quietly, and not everyone accepts losing control without one last attempt. And in the final part, you'll see how the past tried one more time to pull me back, and why this time it failed completely. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that doesn't announce itself as important. My calendar was full, my coffee had gone cold, and I was halfway through a strategy call when my assistant messaged me. Asterisk, there's someone here asking for you. Says it's urgent. Asterisk. I almost told her to reschedule. Almost. Something in my chest tightened. A familiar instinct. I told her to send them in. My parents walked into the conference room together. They looked smaller than I remembered. Older. My mother's posture was stiff, her hands clenched around her purse. My father avoided my eyes, staring instead at the glass walls, the screens, the view of the city stretching out behind me like proof. For a moment, no one spoke. You shouldn't be here, I said finally. Not angry. Just factual. We didn't know where else to go, my mother replied. Her voice carried the same tone she'd always used when she expected doors to open for her. I gestured to the chairs. You have 5 minutes. They sat. My father cleared his throat. We're struggling, he said. The apartment is small. Money's tight. Your mother's health. You sold my car, I interrupted. You invaded my home. You defended it. This isn't about struggle. This is about consequence. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We never thought you'd turn out like this. I almost smiled. This? I asked gently. Capable? Independent? Unreachable? She flinched. We made mistakes, she said quickly. But we're still your parents. And I'm still your daughter, I replied. The one you ignored unless I was useful. The one you punished for not being Brianna. My father finally looked at me. Really looked. For the first time, there was no authority in his gaze. Just uncertainty. We need help, he said quietly. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded, heart steady. I won't give you money. I won't give you access. And I won't give you control. Silence pressed in. But, I continued, I will give you information. I slid a card across the table. A social services consultant. Financial counseling. Job placement resources. My mother stared at it like it was an insult. This is what support looks like, I said. Not rescue. Not denial. My father stood slowly. So that's it. That's it. They left without another word. I sat there long after the door closed, surprised by how little it hurt. The ache I'd carried for decades wasn't gone, but it was quiet now. Manageable. No longer in control. Weeks passed. Brianna didn't reach out again. I heard through a mutual contact that she'd taken the paid role seriously. That she showed up early. That she listened more than she talked. That she was learning. I wished her well from a distance. My career expanded. The global role became permanent. I traveled, led teams across continents, made decisions that shaped real outcomes. I built a life that didn't require permission. One evening, standing in my apartment overlooking the city, I realized something that stopped me cold. I wasn't proving anything anymore. Not to my parents. Not to my sister. Not even to my past self. I had already built what I needed. And that's the quiet truth no one tells you. When you finally stop waiting to be chosen, you choose yourself, and everything changes. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever been overlooked, minimized, or expected to carry the weight while others took the credit, let this be your reminder. Your strength doesn't need their approval. And sometimes the most powerful turning point isn't loud, it's the moment you decide not to go back. If this journey resonated with you, take a second before you go, support the channel, leave a comment about where you're watching from, and help the story reach someone who needs it. Your presence matters more than you know.